Hello, my name is Mrs. Tremper. Today I'm going to read to you a story called Sophie's Masterpiece. This is one of my favorite children's books. It's by Eileen Spinelli and the illustrations are by Jane Dyer. This book was given to me by a very close friend of mine and a former co-worker named Miss Judy Donrow. And you can see that she wrote me a special little note in the beginning. So here's the story, Sophie's Masterpiece. Sophie was no ordinary house spider. Sophie was an artist. She spun webs more wondrous than anyone had ever seen. Her playmates called her incredible. Her mama was proud. Someday, they said, she's going to spin a masterpiece. When Sophie arrived at that age when a young spider must strike out on her own, she moved to Beekman's boarding house. The first thing she did was look around. She did see some dull green walls and some faded rugs and some old window shades. The place just cried out for her talents. So Sophie set to work. Her first project was to weave a web of curtains for Beekman's front parlor. Day after day, she whizzed along, blending a golden thread of sun into her silk. Then one day, the landlady noticed Sophie and she screamed, "Ah, I'll have no spiders in my parlor." She swatted at Sophie with the dust rag. Sophie knew when she wasn't wanted, so she scampered across the wall, up the stairs, into the tugboat captain's closet. When she finally got settled down, she looked around and saw nothing but gray. Gray shirts, gray pants, gray sweaters. This captain needs a new suit, Sophie decided. Something bright, blue, like sky. She began to spin patiently. A sleeve, a collar. One day, the tugboat captain caught Sophie at work. He screamed, "Ah, a spider!" Then he climbed onto the windowsill and out of the roof. Sophie did not want anyone falling off the roof on her account, so she scuttled out of the closet, down the hall, and into the cook's bedroom slipper. Cook's bedroom slippers were patched and dirty. "I'll spin Cook a new pair," Sophie thought, "after I rest for a bit." And no sooner had Sophie snuggled into the toe than she was being flung on the floor. Was it an earthquake? No, it was the cook, who had shaken Sophie out. "Yuck," scowled Cook. "Look at this ugly, disgusting spider." Sophie's feelings were hurt. With great dignity, she journeyed across the rug and under the cook's door. She made the long, long climb up the steep stairs to the third floor, where a young woman lived, where Sophie slipped into the young woman's knitting basket and fell asleep. By this time, many spider years had passed, and Sophie was older. She only had enough energy to finish spinning a few small things for herself. A tiny rose-patterned case for her pillow, 8 colorful socks to keep her legs warm, but mostly she slept. Then one day, a young woman discovered Sophie. "Oh no," Sophie thought, close to tears. She knew that she didn't have the strength for any more journeys. But the young woman did not swat at Sophie with a dust rag. She didn't climb the roof. She didn't say that Sophie was ugly. She simply smiled. And without disturbing Sophie in the least, the young woman picked up her needle and her yarn. Sophie watched as the young woman knitted day after day. Booties! Sophie cried. The young woman was going to have a baby. After the booties were finished, the young woman knitted a baby sweater. Then all her yarn was gone. The young woman did not have enough money to buy yarn for the baby blanket. Never mind, the landlady told her. There's an old brown quilt in the hall closet. Your baby can use that. Sophie had seen that quilt. It was scratchy and drab, not at all fit for a baby. Sophie knew the answer. She would have to spin a blanket herself. In her younger days, this would not have been a problem. But Sophie had grown old and frail and weak, and the baby was due any day. Could Sophie complete the blanket in time? She traveled out of the yarn basket. She traveled to the windowsill. Strands of moonlight fell into the room. Excellent, she thought. I'll weave those strands into the baby's blanket. Some starlight, too. Sophie began. She spun and new ideas came out of her. She worked them into the blanket. Snippets of fragrant pine, wisps of night, old lullabies, playful snowflakes. Sophie spun without blinking or eating or sleeping. She was never more exhausted or determined. On and on she spun. She was down on the farthest corner of the blanket when she heard the cry of a young woman's newborn baby. And there, on the farthest corner, is where Sophie wove into the blanket her very own heart. That night, as the young woman was about to cover her infant with the landlady's quilt, something on the windowsill caught her eye. It was a blanket, so soft, so beautiful, as to be fit for a prince. The young woman knew this was no ordinary blanket. She placed it with love and wonderment around her sleeping baby, and went to sleep herself with her hand upon the little spider's last spinning. Sophie's masterpiece. The end. I hope you enjoyed that story. Whenever I read it, I get a little choked up because it reminds me of my own children. And I also really, really love the character of Sophie. You can email me if you'd like to talk about it more. Thank you for watching.